Overthinking it. Overthinking it. I'm overthinking it. Greetings, fellow Earthlings! This video is going to be a little different than my usual, because my friend Jack Fitzpatrick, Let's Crash This Parade, has challenged me to list my favorite film in 10 different genres. Well, actually he added a couple, so there's 13 genres, and actually I'm going to add one, so that's actually 14. So this is my top film in 14 different genres, only one of which is sci-fi. This is apparently a thing that's been going on with small YouTube channels that like do movie reviews and stuff like that. I'm gonna tag one of my YouTube friends on this, which probably will come to no surprise to anybody who's watched my video a lot. So anyway, without any further ado, do people, that's like the only reason people say the word ado these days, isn't it? Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first genre is horror. Now, before I get started, there's going to be a little ground rule here. I'm going to try to stick to movies that are very specific to the genre, not like hybrid genres, not like horror or sci-fi, which is going to be hard for me because all my favorite horror movies are sci-fi. But there are exceptions. There are a couple of good horror movies that are just straight horror movies. And so for that, I'm going to go with The Shining. This is obviously Stanley Kubrick. I'm obviously a big fan of Stanley Kubrick. And I think The Shining is one of the best horror movies ever. It just gets you on a visceral level. It's deeply psychological. I've seen all kinds of different analyses of it about like child abuse and the whole Indian burial ground stuff. I mean, it's really cool. It's a very good movie, and Jack Nicholson is just terrifying.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
I don't endorse what Stanley Kubrick did to poor Shelley Duvall? Shelley Winters? I don't remember her name. Anyway, I don't endorse what Stanley Kubrick did to that poor actress. But it's still a hell of a movie, and I love it. It's really one of the best horror movies ever made. Okay, for action, I'm a child of the 80s. I have so many favorite 80s action movies like Lethal Weapon, Die Hard. I mean, the list is endless. But honestly, I've got to be true to myself and say that my favorite is pretty recent. It's John Wick, the first John Wick. I mean, I like all of the John Wick movies, but the first one is special. It's funny, it's exciting, the action is violent and again visceral, and Keanu Reeves just nails it.
People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
God, that movie is so good. I could watch it anytime. Next is comic book movies. Okay. I hate to be predictable, but my favorite comic book movie is The Dark Knight. I just think it is the best all-around film. I know some people have gotten tired of Christopher Nolan. I haven't. Yeah, sure, he's incredibly pretentious. But that doesn't bother me. I've always liked Christopher Nolan since I first saw Memento at it was like a film festival at college. And ever since then, I've been a huge fan. And I think The Dark Knight really changed the game. It elevated comic book movies to a level that I don't think it's been matched since.
When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love the Marvel movies. I like some of the DC movies, and there are other comic book movies like the original Superman, Tim Burton's Batman, hopefully the new Batman. You know, there's lots of comic book movies that I do love. But The Dark Knight is incredible. It's just awesome. Okay, now comedy. Comedy's very subjective. What one person finds hysterical, another person's gonna not see the point. But for me, my favorite comedy and the one that I can always laugh at no matter what is PCU. This is about a college campus. Pre-Frosh goes in, gets the tour, and it's just like a college where political correctness has gone completely amok. And this is in the 90s. This is way before that actually really happened. And it's just hysterical. And as much as I love Jon Favreau and what he's done for comic books and Star Wars and even like cooking shows, he will always and forever to me be gutter. I mean, he's gutter, man.
I didn't exhale.
Works for me.
See, it's not necessarily a comedy for everyone. Obviously, the politics are, you're either gonna love them or hate them. But for me, I love it. And that meat scene, come on. Meat tosser! I love that movie. Okay, adventure. Now, Jack didn't seem to understand what adventure is. There's a lot of good adventure movies. Going all the way back to like the black and white days with the jungle movies and stuff like that. But my favorite adventure movie, and the one that I would watch if you gave it to me right now, I'd watch it right now. Sure, why not? Is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Now, I know you expect me to say Raiders of the Lost Ark, and honestly, Raiders of the Lost Ark is the one of that series that I would say is a really, really good film. Like, it's artistic, it's something a little different, but The Last Crusade's just the most fun. I mean, it's got Sean Connery, it's got the Holy Grail, everything. Vienna. I mean, I love that movie. It's really, really good. I have very fond memories of seeing it in the theater, and I basically quote it to death. River Phoenix. It's a great movie. Okay, thriller. Now, see, thriller, it's another one of those genres that's a little tricky to define. If you're going with like a spy thriller or like a political thriller, something like that, I would say The Hunt for Red October. It's like the definitive. I wouldn't say it's the definitive submarine. Blah. I wouldn't say it's the definitive submarine movie. That's Das Boot. But Hunt for Red October, again, Sean Connery, is just, it's great. That's really all I have to say. It's great. I do have to add a little disclaimer about Tom Clancy. I do love his books, or at least I used to. But one day when I was at a writer's conference, I actually met him and talked to him. He gave a lecture. I mean, I did speak like maybe 5 words to him, but mostly I just attended one of his lectures. And the guy's a raging douche pickle. Or was. I'm not supposed to speak ill of the dead, but he was not a good human being. He was an egotistical bastard. And that kind of turned me off to him for a long time. Like, I really had a hard time liking Tom Clancy after that. But I've learned, as I've gotten older, to separate the person from the writing. And I think that's just like it's a thing that you really have to do. And even in movies and actors, you've got to like separate the actor from the person. That's why I can watch a Tom Cruise movie. Anyway, moving on. The other definition of thriller could be like a murder mystery thriller. I mean, it's not actually a murder mystery, but like a Hitchcock thriller. And for that, the film geek in me wants to say Psycho, but honestly, my favorite Hitchcock thriller is Rope. It's a pretty obscure Hitchcock movie, and it was one of those movies that was done in one shot, sort of, back long before that was all the rage in like indie films and stuff. And it's just like these two college kids who are like really full of themselves, what would today be called super privileged, and they just get this idea that they're morally superior to everybody else, and so they can commit murder and get away with it. And so they commit murder of one of their classmates. So this is how the movie begins. You see them murdering their classmate. It's the beginning of this opening shot. And they put his body inside of like a dining table, and then they throw a party. And they invite their professors and a couple of other friends over, and they just have a dinner party with this dead body sitting inside the coffee table. It's brilliant. It's just like such a perfect essence of Hitchcock. I love it. It is one of the most suspenseful and just grimly fascinating and kind of funny movie. James Stewart is the professor, and he's the one who like figures out that things that he has taught these kids, they've like twisted it into their own like madness, and he's just horrified. And in the end, he's the one who figures it out. He figures out what's going on, and he gives them this speech about how they were wrong to reinterpret his ideas and how ashamed he is, and so on and so forth. And it's a great movie. I love Rope, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So yeah, Rope. They kill him with a rope. Western. Okay, Western, nowadays, you don't see a lot of Westerns. I mean, there are some good Westerns out there, and there's some good indie Westerns. The Assassination of John Ford by that's not so bad. That's pretty good. Bone Tomahawk, if you have the stomach for it, is really good. Again, I have to go back to college. I took a class in Westerns, so I learned to really appreciate the classic Western. And I think the granddaddy of all those is The Searchers. It's a really great movie, but there are other ones that I really like classic ones like The Naked Spur or Winchester 73, which are both James Stewart again. But I have to, again, be honest with you and say that my favorite Western is Tombstone. Kurt Russell, Bill Paxton, Bill Hicks. I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head for some reason. And obviously Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday.
I'm your Huckleberry.
I mean, that movie is so quotable. It's great. It's a great Western. It's, the Wyatt Earp story, which has been told a million times, but I think this one does it better than any other.
You tell him I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
But yeah, as far as Westerns goes, that's the one I would watch the most. Unforgiven is also really good, the Clint Eastwood one. I grew up with that one, so it has kind of a special place in my heart. But Tombstone, come on, Tombstone. Animation, okay. This is going to be heresy for somebody who used to work at Walt Disney World, but I'm not going to pick a Disney movie. I'm actually going to go with an anime, and that is Ghost in the Shell, the original Ghost in the Shell movie. I have liked all of the Ghost in the Shells. I mean, I even love the live action movie, much to the chagrin of a lot of other people. But the original anime it's great. I love it. I love the ideas of it, and it still blows my mind in the 21st century. I also do like Akira, but that's the obvious anime answer. And there's other animes that I do like. I'm not a huge anime buff. I start dropping off pretty quickly after Akira and Ghost in the Shell. But yeah, Ghost in the Shell. I mean, sure, I guess technically this is sci-fi, but I'm going to make an exception with anime, or with animation, because there are no movies that are just animation. I think if you're going to pick an animation movie, it's going to have another genre in it. There's just no getting around that. Okay, next is romance. And again, I'm going to fudge just a little bit because I did make the argument in one of my videos that this is science fiction. In fact, I covered it as a sci-fi classic, but it's not really sci-fi. And that is Somewhere in Time. Christopher Reeve, Jane Seymour, Christopher Plummer, guy falls in love with a portrait of a old dead lady and goes back in time, falls in love with her. It's one of the most romantic movies ever made. It's one of the best love stories ever made. And if you want to know more, just go watch my video on it. Okay, here we go. Sci-fi. I can't surprise you. Obviously, it's 2001. Next. Drama. Okay, we're going to go back to Japan for this one, and I'm going to say Akiru. This is Akira Kurosawa. It's about an old man who he's just questioning what the purpose of his whole life was. He's like a bureaucrat or something. It's been a while, actually, since I've seen it. But this is a movie that has really spoken to me over the years, and I find it really deep and really meditative. It's not for everyone. Not everybody's gonna like this movie. But yeah, Akiru, I do recommend it to anyone who has the patience and who really wants to get inside the Japanese psyche, especially post-war. It's one of Akira Kurosawa's best, and that's saying something. Biopic. I actually don't like a lot of biopics. I find that the formula gets really overdone. I think it can be done well. I mean, I do like some of the music biopics, like Ray, and the one about Johnny Cash. I can't remember the name of it now. Joaquin Phoenix. Those are good, but they're formulaic. So for me, I have to pick one that's a little out there. It's a little different, and again, it's a movie you probably haven't heard of. It's Born to be Blue with Ethan Hawke, who plays Chet Baker, who's one of my favorite jazz musicians of all time. The movie, kind of like Chet Baker himself, it's very fanciful. The details, it gets completely wrong on purpose. Chet Baker was kind of a legend in his own mind. If you ever heard interviews or read interviews where he talked about his life, he made stuff up all the time. And this movie kind of goes with that. It treats his history as its own kind of legend that's being built on top of itself. And there's layers and layers of what is real and what is not. And it's pretty artsy, but you know, I love it. I love Chet Baker, and Ethan Hawke is incredible in the role. Okay, now for the last genre that I didn't pick myself, and that is war. A war movie. I want to say Paths of Glory, which is another Stanley Kubrick movie, but I can't. I gotta say Saving Private Ryan. I just have to. It's the most like war. And instead of dwelling on that and getting all serious and sober about it, I'm going to tell you a story. My grandfather, who went to World War II, he was in it. He refused to watch Saving Private Ryan, and we used to tell him he didn't need to. He lived it, obviously, so we actually didn't want him to watch it. We were worried he was going to get shell shocked or something, because that did happen to a lot of veterans who watched it. So one day, as we're all huddled together in the house during a hurricane, like we are trapped in the house. I lived in Florida back then. My family, my parents, my grandparents, there was just three generations of people living in the house at the time. And he decided in the midst of all this chaos and noise outside that he was going to watch Saving Private Ryan once and for all. And also it should be noted he was kind of deaf. So he had the volume cranked way up. So I'm sitting in my parents' bedroom and I'm trying to just, cope with the fact that I'm in the middle of a hurricane. And I hear war coming from the living room. And it sounds like the real thing. It's so intense. And I'm thinking, holy crap, the neighborhood is being attacked by the Germans. Of course. But my grandfather, he didn't get shell-shocked. He loved it. He thought it was a great film. I think it was kind of cathartic for him. And it did actually serve as a meaningful experience for him to watch it. I just wish he'd picked a better time, honestly. Okay, so finally I'm gonna shoot the wild card. This is the one genre that I don't think was represented yet, and I feel like it really should be, and that is fantasy. Why hasn't anybody mentioned fantasy yet? Sure, you could go with the swords and wizards and magic and all that. Lord of the Rings, great movie. Ridley Scott's Legend, I think, is pretty underappreciated. But I'm actually going to go a little off. I mean, I'm the one who picked this genre, so I can twist it however I want. And I'm going to say the movie What Dreams May Come. Now, this is Robin Williams, based on a Richard Matheson novel. And the novel's also really good, but it's very different. And this is the movie that, let me back up. It was the movie that taught me that film can be both entertaining and artistic. And it really, really spoke to me when I saw it back then. Without getting too much into my personal life, when I was younger, I had to deal with people who wanted to commit suicide. And it was more than one. I had friends, and one of which I actually had to, rescue from slitting her wrists and stuff like this. So suicide was a really big thing for me. It was something that had traumatized me. And What Dreams May Come deals with it head on, and it deals with it in a very sincere way. Even though the movie itself is extremely fantastical. This is a movie, okay, if you don't know what it's about, What Dreams May Come, Robin Williams is a doctor, and his wife has committed suicide. His children have died. So he's looking at the bottom of the barrel. And he dies in a car accident. And so, that's how the movie begins.
Everybody's dead.
So he wakes up in the afterlife, and the afterlife is for him like this impressionistic painting, and it's beautiful and amazing, and it's like one of the most stunning pieces of film I've ever seen. And anyway, the whole movie is just him traversing the afterlife trying to rescue his wife, because apparently suicides, they get lost in themselves. They can't cope with what they have actually done to themselves in the afterlife. So they kind of build their own hell. And he actually has to go to the depths of hell for the woman he loves. And in the end, spoiler alert, he finds her and decides and realizes he can't save her. He can't save her from herself. So instead of trying to bring her out of that hell, he just decides he's going to join her. He's just going to live there with her and let the madness take over. And that act of self-sacrifice, of course, is what brings her out of it. And so they do eventually walk out of it, and then they decide to reincarnate, and there's a live happily ever after-ish. I don't know. But What Dreams May Come, it's a really profound movie that takes a really interesting view of life after death. And I don't know, it's beautiful, it's poetic. The actors are really, really good. Max von Sydow, Cuba Gooding Jr. back in his prime. I can't remember the actress's name. It doesn't matter. But it's a really, really, really good movie, and it meant a lot to me when I saw it, and it still means a lot to me today. And it's one of those movies, I'll admit, I can't watch it without crying. I just can't. I'm man enough to admit that. By the time I get to the end of that movie, by the time he sacrifices himself for his wife, I'm just like, I'm bawling like a baby, man. It's a great movie. And that's it. So this is the point at which I have to tag somebody else to do this. Jack actually tagged like 3 or 4 people, but I'm only going to do one. Well, I guess technically it's 2 people, and that's No Market Media. You guys, I love your reviews, and I think it's a crime that you have so few subscribers. So I challenge you to take these. You don't have to do all 14. You can just do 10, the first 10. I think those were the ones that were the original 10. No, he added, never mind. Just do whichever ones you want. You can do all 14, or you can just pick 10 that you like. And you don't even have to do it if you don't want to. This is just a fun thing for us small YouTubers to do together. And that's it. That's just, have fun with it. You know, I like talking about movies, and this was just an excuse to tell you some of my favorite movies. That's it. That's all this is. So anyway, I also wanted to thank everybody for getting me to 3,000 subscribers. That's amazing. I love it. And I love you. I love you. So anyway, until next time, when I'll get back to doing whatever video I promised I would do in the last video, this is the Unapologetic Geek, telling you to never be ashamed of what you love, as long as you're not hurting anybody. Okay, let's back up. I forget what the actual title of it. Anyway. Okay, next. Okay, I can't. I gotta think. Hold on. Okay, edit this out.